to the Jenny Beth Show.
This morning, the President of the United States posted something that shocked the world. It was not a policy memo or a White House statement. He posted this on Truth Social, and I'm going to read it to you word for word, exactly as he wrote it. You can read on the screen. You can read along on the screen. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in a long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. God bless the great people of Iran. Let that sink in. The President of the United States posted those words this morning, and tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we will all find out what he meant. This is not a drill. Kharg Island, Iran's primary oil export hub, was struck overnight. Military bunkers, air defense systems, storage facilities targeted and hit. Oil infrastructure was spared deliberately. The IRGC responded, restraint is over. And still, the 8 p.m. deadline stands. In addition to the situation in Iran, today we will discuss the status of the Save America Act in Congress, how the College Board is administering your children's AP exams, and Freedom 250, two extraordinary events Moms for Liberty is hosting. I'm Jenny Beth Martin, and this is the Jenny Beth Show. We have three extraordinary patriots here today to help you understand what's happening and what comes next. Stacy Washington is a United States Air Force veteran and host of Stacy on the Right on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125. Tina Descovich is the CEO and co-founder of Moms for Liberty. She was in the room when President Trump signed the Transgender Athletes Executive Order. And Kris Ullman is president of Eagle Forum, the organization founded by Phyllis Schlafly in 1972. And she spoke to Tea Party Patriots Action's rally for the Save America Act in September on the Capitol lawn. Kris, Tina, Stacy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jenny Beth. Good to be here.
All right, so let's get into it. Stacy, you're not only an Army brat, but an Air Force veteran. You covered Trump's Iran national address this week on your show. The president wrote, "A whole civilization will die tonight." What does it mean when the commander-in-chief posts something like that at this moment in time?
So obviously the commander-in-chief has to influence the enemies in Iran to take a stronger look at the proposals that are being presented by the United States. But if you really want to understand what the president has been doing in Iran and in Venezuela and in all of the foreign policy that we've seen, you have to look at his national security strategic document that was actually published in November of 2025. It's just 29 pages of brilliantly exposed information on how the president plans to execute his Monroe Doctrine or the Donroe Doctrine in our hemisphere and then across the world.
Hey, Kris, I can't hear a thing.
So what I'm interested in, most importantly, is to see the president have the response that he needs in Iran. And so hopefully that's what we're going to see happen. And I think when people look at the statement that he made, on its face, it looks really incendiary, but it's actually an important part of the negotiation process between the president and these, well, it's really the mullahs and the IRGC and the terror sponsors, not really the Iranian people.
So I'm not sure if, Kris, are you able to hear us? Were you just saying that you were having trouble hearing us?
For the sound to be your AirPods.
Okay, I think
but then it went away, so then I went and changed it to the speakers.
Okay, Kevin and Landon, maybe you can take Kris back into the back room. Okay, Stacy, on your screen right now, we have a map of Kharg Island, which is 15 miles long, or we're trying to get that, but we may not because, there we go, 15 miles long. 90% of Iran's crude oil exports run through that island, and the deadline is at 8 p.m. tonight. The president used in his own words he used words that his own administration has previously avoided: complete and total regime change. What do you think that that means? And what authority does the president have to do this? We'll hear from the left that he shouldn't be doing it or doesn't have the authority to do it. How would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, authority as if he's not the president. This is pretty typical of leftists in America today, where anything President Trump does that previous presidents have done is seen as something that's illegal and needs to immediately be struck down by some Article 2 or Article 3 judge. The real issue here is that President Trump is negotiating with these terrorists. They're thugs. They're people who have killed over 1,000 American citizens, and their chief aim, the reason that they exist, what gets them up in the morning, is the idea that they could somehow get 8 or 9 nuclear bombs together, destroy Israel, and then destroy the United States. They already have ballistic capability, or they had before the last month of bombing runs by the United States. They had the capability of reaching the United States. They had a 4,000-mile capability. So that doesn't mean they would actually be able to destroy us. We do have our own defensive systems. But to have terrorists with that kind of firepower is unacceptable. It's not something any previous American president has advocated for. So I think it's important to listen to what the president says, but to also place it in the context of him publicly admonishing an enemy not to go any further and to accept what's been placed on the table. So what authority does he have? He's the commander in chief of the United States military, the strongest military on the face of the planet. He also is the commander in chief. He's the chief executive of the executive branch, and he has under war powers authorization up to 90 days before he needs to go to Congress to get authorization for any troop movements, which as of right now, troops have been moved, but they are not in the theater of war. They are not on the ground. And so he is still within the bounds of the Constitution and his authority that has been given to him under previously passed legislation. So he's still within the bounds of what he can do.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think that you're right. And I also think as I watch what he was saying on social media over the weekend, on Easter Sunday, and then again today. I don't know what's in his mind. I can only read what he's posted and try to figure it, try to understand exactly what he's saying and what else he may not be saying. I get the distinct impression he has no desire whatsoever to destroy their power plants or their bridges and to annihilate essentially their civilization. I think that's the last thing he wants to do, and he is trying desperately to get them to do the right thing and to make the right decision. But if they don't make the right decision, he'll do what he has to do to end this 47-year-long conflict we've been having with them. What do you think of what I'm saying on that, Stacy?
I agree with you. And so, we can look at past actions by President Trump. He killed Qasem Soleimani, a man who'd murdered hundreds of Americans. He was the head of the Octopus, a network that spread terror around the globe. He was also an arms dealer and a dealer in mercenaries. And he had the connections with the North Koreans, the Chinese, and the Russians, which were such important networks for him to plug into as he spread terror around the world and targeted American soldiers. And so he had many, many, many soldier deaths on his docket that he could claim that he killed Americans, and he killed them in the theater of war, and he also killed Americans through terrorism. And so killing Soleimani and then ending 8 conflicts by using tariffs, oddly enough, as a negotiating tactic, President Trump has demonstrated that he really does not like to engage in war. He really does want to be a peacemaker, but he's also demonstrating through this action, the one in Venezuela and this one, and last summer's bombing using our beautiful GBU 47s, the bunker busters, mountain busters. He's been able to demonstrate that he has the will, the authority, and the military might to execute his will across the globe for the betterment of Western nations and the advancement of the American ideal, peace through strength. So he is able to do this. And I really think that, the language is bombastic, but we're talking about war. And President Trump has a warrior spirit. He was actually called forward for this time to set right things that previous presidents had made as mistakes. So he's cleaning up. He's resetting the table, and he's setting us on a trajectory as the leader of the Western world to be able to have more peace and less war. That's really important for us to keep in mind. If you have a warrior spirit, it's a little easier to comprehend For people who are a little more laid back and meek, it looks crazy. But the fact is, we've been begging, praying, and fasting and tithing and doing everything we can for a wrecking ball. President Trump is that wrecking ball. Demolition is messy. Cleanups are messy, especially if you have a hoarder house. You have to send in teams of people in hazmat suits with dumpsters and trucks and everything. It's a messy job. But no one complains when it's over. It's always during the actual cleanup that people get a little antsy and they lose their will. We don't have to worry about that with President Trump. He has enough will for all of us, and that's why we elected him. So I think he's in the right here, and I don't think his language is too much. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot, but you really have to look into the Bible if you want to understand a warrior spirit, and you have to go back to the scriptures. There are over 100 scriptures where God talks about justice, and in those verses, you'll see the heart of the Father. You understand that God is a God of justice, and that while he wants peace, the sword of truth actually brings division, and it cuts down the evildoer. And the job of a leader is to restore peace and advance things on behalf of the righteous and to cut down the evildoer. Justice, when properly meted out, means that evildoers will see their demise. And that's what's happening in Iran. And it's not pretty, but it is necessary.
Stacy, you're right. And I'm going to say something that I thought of as you were talking about that. And then, Tina, I'm going to ask you a question. But I've been, my mom and daughter and I are reading the Bible in 90 days this quarter. And I've done it a few times in the past, but I'm doing it again. I always get something different out of it. I just went through Exodus and Moses leaving Exodus, and what you were just saying, Stacy, about justice made me think of something. I've heard some people online, and the left will sit there and they'll complain and say, "Oh, President Trump is moving the goalpost, or he's changing, or he's extending the deadline." Yet when we go back and read even the story of Exodus, God kept, and I'm not saying President Trump is God. I'm just comparing something here. I'm not saying he's God, but God through Moses was saying, "Let my people go, let my people go," and he kept giving different. There was the plagues and the locust and the frogs, and eventually he took the firstborn, but he kept trying not to do that. He kept extending the option to Egypt to stop, and I think in many ways that's what America has done for 47 years. We've kept trying to give them a lot of room, a lot of wiggle room, and certainly President Trump has done that. But he's saying right now, this is a line, this is a limit. You've tested us enough, and now we're not taking it anymore.
I agree. And the president has also promised a limited engagement, no boots on the ground unless absolutely necessary to retrieve uranium. He has a very short timeline for this. It's not just for polling. We're in the midterm. So there's a lot for the president to consider here. And I really feel like, I hate to be that person, but this is just, it's who I am. And I'm too old to try to change now. If you don't like the language, just don't read the Truth Social posts. Just skip over them and read something else for today. Maybe read some scripture and toughen up a little bit. And then come back to this at the end of the week. Maybe take a dip a toe in, get a little of the information at the end of the week. For people who are really having a difficult time with the president's language, he dropped the F-bomb on Easter. I kind of looked at that, sliced into my lamb cake, and went on about my business because there's nothing new under the sun. President Trump has been like this since he was a builder in New York. So he's gonna have language that I would never use, but I'm not the president. He is, and I'm really happy that he's the guy who gets to decide to send in Delta Force to bring our pilots back, to honor our never leave anyone behind promise, to advance the doctrines that he clearly laid out in Agenda 47. He's not doing anything beyond what his national security strategy describes, and that's what's so interesting about him. Everyone's acting like it's so extreme. It is not extreme to create a document in November of 2025 and then execute on that every single day afterwards. It's actually exactly what we voted for. We have had so many politicians who they just talk and talk and talk and talk, and at the end of the day, they accomplish nothing. They leave office with more debt, more military entanglements, more dead troops, fewer new participants in our economy. And here's President Trump doing the exact opposite, and people are complaining. I'm just like, you know what? I mean, I want to hear what people have to say, but I want people to toughen up a little.
Absolutely. Okay, shifting the focus in Iran just a little bit. Tina, you've been to the White House a dozen times with this administration, and you were there when the president signed the athlete executive order. In fact, President Trump even thanked you by name. When you read the words that he wrote today, God bless the great people of Iran, what went through your mind? And also, as a mom and as a woman who supports other moms, many of those moms have children who are military age. What do you think after having watched the rescue mission this weekend? What are you thinking about what is to come? And if it was one of your children, how would you feel with them being in President Trump's hands?
It's a great question because I have two sons, 24 and 18. I'm guessing both of them are in that age range that could be drafted if we ever got to that in America. I don't think we're going to get to that in America. Let me be clear on that. The one thing I know about President Trump is he deeply loves our country and American citizens. He loves our military. He loves children. And so to watch what happened with the extraction of just one that was left behind. To hear Secretary Hegseth yesterday discuss the rollout of what President Trump ordered to put in action to go retrieve our American citizens was nothing short of remarkable and also not surprising. If anyone thinks that President Trump was going to leave one of our men and soldiers behind, they don't know him at all. And unfortunately, I think a lot of America doesn't understand who he is. With the conversation that you just had with Stacy about the tweet on Easter Sunday, no, I didn't love to see that tweet on Easter Sunday or his Truth Social post on Easter Sunday. It's not the language I would ever use either, but also we are at war. And the one thing President Trump knows how to do is make a deal, negotiate, and intimidate the enemy. And I don't think that post was meant for me, a mom of a young man. I think that post was meant for our enemy.
Thank you for that. And I think that's a good way of looking at it. It wasn't meant for us. It was meant for the enemies of this country. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to go to Kris and talk about the Save America Act. Welcome back. The United States Senate returns to Washington next week, and the Save America Act requires proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and voter ID at the polls. 87% of Americans support it, 73% of Democrats support it, and 100% of Democrat senators are blocking a floor vote. Make sure you call the United States Senate, tell them to pass the Save America Act. You can go to passthesaveamericaact.com, and you'll get that website that's up on your screen, or call 202-224-3121. Again, that's passthesaveamericaact.com, and the phone number is 202-224-3121. You should just save that in your phone because we often need you calling Capitol Hill. Bringing our attention back to the homeland, last night, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mullin sat down with Fox News for his first interview since being confirmed. In that interview, he raised the possibility of pulling Customs and Border Protection officers from airports in sanctuary cities. He named LAX in Los Angeles and JFK in New York. Governor Newsom called the idea stupid. Let's watch that clip.
Your state is safe as my state.
But,
and
Mr.
so
Secretary, you know that the issue here is that you have states and cities that are sanctuary states
right.
and cities. And that's part of the issue. It's part of the problem. We saw it in Minnesota. How do you get around that?
Well, I believe sanctuary cities is not lawful. I don't think they're able to do that. And so we're going to take a hard look at this. Just one area we may take a hard look at is some of these cities have international airports. If they're a sanctuary city, should they really be processing customs into their city? I mean, seriously, if they're a sanctuary city and they're receiving international flights, and we're asking them to partner with us at the airport, but once they walk out of the airport, they're not going to enforce immigration policy, maybe we need to have a really hard look at that, because we need to focus on cities that want to work with us.
So you're saying that big cities that are sanctuary cities that have a big airport, they might lose their customs?
Well, I'm saying we're going to have to start prioritizing things at some point. Right now, remember, the Democrats are wanting to defund Customs and Border Patrol. Well, who processes those individuals when they walk off the plane? And so I'm going to have to be forced to make hard decisions. Who's willing to work with us and partner with us? Once again, I'm not going outside the policies that Congress passed for me, and we're not trying to push those, but we're saying you got to partner with us.
If they're a sanctuary city, should they really be processing customs into their city? That is DHS Secretary Mullin. LAX, JFK, sanctuary airports, and sanctuary cities. I think he should probably add O'Hare, SeaTac, and MSP to that list too. Kris, you at Eagle Forum have stood for secure borders and against illegal immigration, and Phyllis Schlafly did as well. What do you make of Secretary Mullin's comments?
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit about his comments, but I'm going to agree with him on the most important thing, and that is our Customs and Border Patrol agents and everyone in that agency and everybody in ICE and everybody at DHS needs to be paid. They need to be funded, and that has to happen immediately. I would argue that we actually need Customs and Border Patrol, the federal agents, especially in those cities like O'Hare and JFK and LA, because, you know, they intercepted 6 tons of illegal drugs over the last year. No, on a typical day, they do 6 tons of illegal drugs. We need them in those cities, but we need them to be paid. That's the most important thing. They have human rights, they have needs, and they should be paid. Now, what should we do with sanctuary cities? I think we should defund them on a whole variety of different angles. You name it, they should not get any kind of federal funding, but we need to pay these important agents that are really responsible for keeping us all safe, for keeping our homeland safe. And it's really unacceptable that the Senate left town for 2 weeks and allowed these important federal workers who keep us safe every day not to be paid.
Stacy, Secretary Mullin threatened to pull Customs and Border Patrol officers from sanctuary airports if those cities don't cooperate with DHS. You cover this kind of topic every single night. Is this the moment the Trump administration actually makes these blue cities feel real-world consequences for their sanctuary policies?
It sounds like something I would come up with, so I love it. But the fact is, within 24 hours of them doing this, some Article 3 judge will just strike it down and enjoin the Trump administration from doing so. The threat itself was important enough to have Gavin Newsom, wannabe 1600 Avenue resident. That's like all he cares about right now is trying to be the president. He responded immediately, but he also has a huge press operation. I think he probably spends more money on press than he does working on getting the homes rebuilt in the Pacific Palisades. So I think so the issue here is whether or not sanctuary cities are a lawful kind of designation. I believe they are not. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV, but I have seen every episode of Law and Order. And if that counts for anything and all the reading that I do, I feel like this should be something that should go through lawsuit to the Supreme Court so that they can strike down the ability of local jurisdictions to defy longstanding federal law on immigration. They claim that the executive branch controls immigration. Remember when Governor Jindal was disgusted with illegals being dropped off during the Obama administration? He tried to stop it, and he was immediately smacked down in court. They said the executive branch controls immigration. Well, if that's true, then this should be, as a matter of course, if an agency is defunded, then its operations cannot continue. And the first place you eliminate and curtail those operations would be in the sanctuary cities. They deserve this kind of treatment because of the way that they've demonized law enforcement, 800% increase in attacks on federal law enforcement because of sanctuary cities. And they're the hardest place for us to get the deportations going. But they're now some of the safest places. Memphis is almost a utopia after having the agents there 4,300 arrests of hardened criminals who were terrorizing the Memphians there, who are now living in relative peace and prosperity because thanks to President Trump and the surge that he did to get the criminal illegals off the street. So I agree with it, but I'm just waiting on an Article 3 judge. We could play a drinking game. We could take a sip of green tea and get our catechins on as soon as it gets. I mean, we'll have a gallon in us, but we'll definitely that's good for us. Like the green tea is really good for us. I've just learned about that recently. I'm telling you, Jenny Beth, he should do it, even though he's going to be struck down by some court.
I'm sure he will be struck down. Somehow he can't exercise executive authority, but the states can avoid the supremacy clause. It
Right.
makes no sense. And yet in Arizona, we have a situation where they cannot require proof of citizenship to register to vote because of the supremacy clause. It seems to me that the supremacy clause, they pick and choose how they're going to apply it and when it's going to be applied. Okay, Tina, Moms for Liberty has chapters in 48 states. How does sanctuary cities affect moms with kids in schools in these cities and states? And do your supporters feel like the federal law is followed when it comes to immigration?
I think we all know that law is not being followed when it comes to immigration. That's why we're seeing the crime and other things rise in blue cities to astronomical levels. The story that comes to mind, the most recent, is what's going on in Fairfax County. We've got a student, a man who is 18, almost 19 years old now, who is a junior in a Fairfax County high school, who is an illegal immigrant, groping young girls, and there is nothing being done about it. So, they're failing at the policy level, even at the school district level, let alone all the way at the state level in Virginia, and then obviously federal immigration policies for us to even get to this point. And so that's just like a most local story, but it's happening across the country in much worse crime and much worse ways. And moms are obviously very concerned about that.
Tina, elaborate on that, because I have missed that story.
Yeah, it's crazy what's going on. I was updating on it this morning, catching up on it, because I think it's gotten to the point where the man has been arrested, but now, it's in the court system. And so they've released him, they've released his bail. Like there's a battle going on at every level of government for what's happening here. But the point is the school district did absolutely nothing. They aren't changing policies. They did nothing to punish this man. He's allowed to stay in the school, and the girls, they're the victims, but they're not being identified as victims at all. They're getting no protection, just like every other blue city across the country, where you have boys in the bathroom and boys in the locker rooms, and the schools just say, "Too bad, girls, suck it up."
Yeah, that is absolutely horrible. And Northern Virginia has a track record of taking a student who's doing something wrong to girls and just moving them over to another school so that I guess they can just keep going and sweep the problem under the rug. That is horrifying. Kris, I'm changing the subject just slightly. You spoke at the Tea Party Patriots Action rally for the Save America Act on Capitol Hill, and that same day, Eagle Forum delivered messages. You were in senators' offices talking to them about this. At the time, it was just the SAVE Act, and you've been in this fight for the Save America Act since the beginning. The Senate returns in 6 days. What do you think is the most important thing our audience needs to do before next Monday?
Well, as you said before, the most important thing that they can do is contact their senators. And if that means picking up the phone and calling their offices, that's great. But they're going to be back in the districts all this week. Senators have district offices. The best thing you can do if you have time is to go by their district office and just say, hey, you need to know how important this is to our community, to our families, to our state. They will react to that kind of pressure and make phone calls every day, send emails every single day. There is really no excuse when you look at the sheer number of Americans from each side of the political aisle that care about this issue, that want to have faith in our elections. That's really what it's about. It's about restoring trust, making sure that we can all trust and know that only Americans are voting. And so I think it is absolutely imperative to get in the car, drive down to their offices, or pick up the phone every single day and just remind them how important it is.
And Kris, talk to us about the constitutional argument. Some people will try to say that requiring proof of citizenship to vote is a poll tax, which I think is just absurd. But what do you say to that, and how does that argument fall apart as you break it out down?
Well, I think when we live in a nation where you need to have a real ID to get on an airplane, the idea that this is a poll tax really falls apart. We know that the franchise of voting belongs to U.S. citizens. And, this is not 50 years ago, 100 years ago, even 20 years ago, where it may have been a little bit more difficult. But I got married 25 years ago. I didn't have any trouble changing my name on my official documents and all that stuff, and re-registering to vote here in Virginia, where I live in an 83% Democrat city, and I have had to show ID every single time, and nobody seems to mind and nobody seems to fuss about it. So I think that constitutional argument just falls apart in practice. Plus, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that you can't demand this. And it just makes common sense, and it rebuilds trust, and it really isn't a burden. I don't know if you remember when Nikki Haley wanted to instill this voter ID, and she offered to pay people or pay to have them taken down to get their IDs. The left doesn't care. They don't want secure elections. That's the bottom line. They will throw up false arguments until the cows come home.
Yep.
You're exactly right about that, Kris. Stacy, Tea Party Patriots Action had a poll recently, and it showed 87% of Americans support proof of citizenship requirements. 73% of Democrats support it. What are you hearing from everyday Americans who call into your show about the Save America Act? And if 73% of Democrats support this bill, why are 100% of Democrats blocking the floor vote?
Well, it's another reflection of just how out of touch elected Democrats and their activists are with their base. The number is actually an overwhelming majority of Black Americans who support the Save America Act. They want constitutional voting, as Kris just described, limited to people who are citizens of this country. The disenfranchisement of Black voters because of their neighborhoods being targeted as landing pads for illegal immigrants, and how whole neighborhoods are now voting differently in Chicago and other major cities across the country, areas where President Trump never stood a chance. He was able to make serious inroads and turn those city blocks purple because of issues like illegal immigration, are a reflection of that poll number that you just described. So, I'm Black and I'm a woman, and I just recently, like right before the deadline, because I guess that's how I am, got my real ID. I flew with that. I've been through the Pebble Beach TSA entrance at the White House dozens of times since President Trump returned, and before real ID was actually the law of the land. And nobody faint, but I also possess a passport. I married my husband years ago, changed my last name, had to get my birth certificate in order to have this new real ID. I was able to order it for $15. It took a while to get here, but it came. And all of the other documents that I needed, I was magically or supernaturally able to lay my hands on them and take them there and pay the tiny fee to get a real ID, and then send all of my information off to DC to get my passport because I had allowed that to expire. So I recently went through this entire process, and I survived unscathed and still able to talk and walk around out amongst the regular people. It's amazing because I know as a Black person, I'm just not normally able to do the same thing that white people can do, but somehow I was able to pull it off. And no one has told the Democrats, because I'm not really Black, because I'm a Republican, but I'm just saying, just looking at me, I don't also identify as a Black person, but I look like a Black person. I'm still actually literally genetically, I guess, a Black person. I don't know, not a biologist. My daughter's a biologist. But anyway, I'm saying that if I can do it with my kind of scatterbrained, disorganized self, any person can get an ID, especially a woman if you're married or what have you. Did you see MSNBC? Mika was saying she didn't remember where she had her name changed, so she didn't think she'd be able to get a real ID, knowing she flies internationally because she and her husband are rich. And these are ludicrous assertions by the Democrats. As usual, they are being hypocritical and insulting to Black Americans But, we still persist. I'm still flying. I flew out of the country last year. I'll probably do it again this year just for spite, just to spite them and go out of the country using my passport because I have one. So I would laugh, but it's so insulting.
I think that is funny. And, you were talking about that lady who changed her name. I'm so bad with pop culture, but I looked through her her X feed or her Instagram feed. I don't remember which one it was. One of her social media feeds where she had posted how she didn't remember where she changed her name. First, when you change your name, it's a big deal. Like if you're not doing it because you're getting married and you just are changing your name for professional reasons, which is what she said, you're going to have to go to court to do that. So it seems like that would be something that stands out in one's mind, but maybe it doesn't. Then in her social media feed, if you scroll down just a few posts, she talks about how she remembers sitting in the car with her children while her husband went inside. And I don't remember exactly where they were, but she remembered exactly where they were as she was teaching her children about the birds and the bees and exactly what happened and the hand motions she used. So she could remember that and exactly where she was sitting, but she can't remember where she changed her name. I think she's just lying. She's just making stuff up to try to oppose this bill. It's a common sense bill. It isn't that hard. And those of us who have changed our names, we know that you've got to keep up with the paperwork. And if you don't keep up with the paperwork, you go order more government documents. It's not that hard. It's just ridiculous. So one more time, before we move on to education, the U.S. Senate returns next Monday, 6 days from now. And as Kris said, you can go to their local offices while they're out still. And then when they get back, you can, or in the meantime, you can also make phone calls and send emails to them. The Save America Act requires proof of citizenship to register to vote, and it requires voter ID to cast your ballot. You can call the Capitol switchboard at 202-224-3121, and you can go to passthesaveamericaact.com to send an email and to make a call, and then also do what Kris said and go to their local office. Tell them what you think politely, lawfully, respectfully, but they need to bring this bill to the floor for a vote, and they need to pass it. And the Democrats who are standing in the way need to be called out for it, and the Republicans need to know that they do not need to back down. We want this bill passed into law. All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about our children. The College Board has been quietly doing something that American kids that every parent should be furious about, though at this point, people who are involved in Moms for Liberty, and if you're a conservative and a constitutional mom, you probably are not completely surprised. Education Next confirmed that the College Board has admitted to lowering passing scores on AP exams. The tests are easier, the scores look the same, and the content I'm about to show you is something you're not going to believe. We're going to bring, I guess we're going to bring that up in just a minute. So we'll show you the content in just a minute. But before we do that, Tina, Education Next confirmed that the College Board admits it's lowered passing scores on AP exams. You've been at the White House, you've studied education policy, you delivered complaints to the DOJ. How bad is it really? And how long has this been going on? And what are you seeing as someone who's working with moms concerned about education?
This has been going on for a very long time. My 24-year-old that we spoke about earlier, when he was in middle school, I got his state-mandated civics test scores back. And in Florida at the time, you could get a 1 through a 5, 5 being the best, and he got a 5. And I was one proud mom, patting him on the back, myself on the back, thinking his teacher was great, all was well, until someone pulled me aside and really unfolded and showed me what that meant. And once you really dug in and understood what it was, he got about 50% of the questions right. So this has been going on for a very long time with state tests, standardized tests, and now with the College Board, obviously. It's the dumbing down of America, and it's a real problem. And it's mostly in the name of equity. If you look at why the College Board decided to move that scale and adjust the scores, you look at the inputs and the pressure that's been being put on the College Board, and it starts with a columnist in the New York Times that was saying children of other ethnicities were not scoring well on these tests. Children that were impoverished were not scoring well on these tests. And so instead of figuring out how to bring better education to those students and bring them up to the students that were scoring well, they decided to move the scores and dumb down America. And it's happening across the country. It's why we only have a third of kids in America that can read on grade level, and why we have the lowest math scores ever in the history of the United States.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm going to skip forward just a minute. So my production team is going to bring up this chart from an AP textbook. This was going around on social media recently, and it's from an AP U.S. Government and Politics textbook. And what you're seeing right now, if you're listening and you don't see it, it is a political classification chart framing ideology from authoritarian to libertarian, and then from left to right. And it is from the Political Compass, which is it is a website that is not from Britain. I think it's from Australia or New Zealand. It is. They use British English, not American English, on their website. In this particular chart, mapped out the way that it is right there, is embedded in this AP textbook. They also have a blank chart with nothing in it, but then they have this ranking of world leaders, and it has Hitler almost to the very top of authoritarianism, and the same for Stalin. And then it has President Trump just barely below Hitler and above Stalin when it comes to authoritarianism, and Ted Cruz in the same area. I'm just frankly disgusted by it. But Stacy, what are your reactions to it? And we're going to just do a round robin and hear what everyone thinks about this.
Okay, this is trash, but it's a propaganda tool meant to convince children that people on the political right are closer to Hitler, and Obama, who's recently fallen out of favor because of their obsession with illegal immigration. They want to put Obama 2012 up there near authoritarian because his nickname was the deporter in chief, even though under Jay Johnson, they had the kids in cages, they had a lot of different things, but they didn't really have a record of deportation that was that much better than any Republican president. He just deported people, but he also allowed a lot of people to come in the country illegally. And I would just like to circle back really quickly to what Tina said. You know what the worst outshoot of the information that you shared, Tina, about how they're dumbing these test scores down, is that children, they're adults now. They go to college, they get accepted, and they're in rigorous programs that require mathematics, they require science, and the kids are failing out of these classes in college, or they're struggling and having to get tutors, or they can't test into the grade level opportunity and they have to take a remedial course, and they can't figure out why. In our household, if a kid of ours was struggling with something and we knew about it, we would get them a tutor, we would do some kind of enrichment over the summer, we would make sure that they caught up so that they could stay on the path for college readiness, which is what they chose. They're harming these students in the long term, which impacts how many doctors and engineers and scientists we can turn out on an annual basis, which is why we're relying so heavily on foreigners to come in and fill those jobs through the H-1B visas, which are a danger to us. All these foreigners coming into our colleges under the F-1 visas, they're coming here for activism, not science. So this has to be stopped, not just because it hurts the students, and it does, but because it has national security implications that we are just beginning to see the ramifications of. It all works together. They're evil, and all their stuff works together for the advancement of the destruction of our country. So, I look at that chart, and I see all of the evil that they purvey on every level. It kind of sums it up right there, the way they're lying about who's a libertarian. All those people down there are libertarians, but not Ted Cruz. There are plenty of Republicans who have libertarian leanings. They're so far on the edge of authoritarianism, you can't even tell that. And Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama belong on the other side because they're leftists. In fact, they're the furthest left we've ever had. Hillary, if she'd been elected, would have destroyed our country during the pandemic. So, it's a farce.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I just want to repeat, the AP U.S. Government and Politics textbook. And that chart, they've pulled it from a non-American website. And you can have non-American websites, but if you're trying to teach American history and American politics, you should be looking to Americans to figure out how we rank our leaders when it comes to these things, not a foreign government. Kris, I'm going to go to you, and then we're going to go to Tina. So, Kris, what do you think of this? You at Eagle Forum have been fighting indoctrination the entire life of Eagle Forum. What are you thinking?
Well, it's really funny because I actually took the quiz, and
I love this.
On the line. Awesome. Okay, so let me tell you about me. I am as pro-life. I'm against marijuana legalization. I am socially so conservative, and there were 36 questions on it, and they're very hard to even figure out kind of where you are on some of them. But on the social issues, I was really high, and yet I'm practically a libertarian, and Donald Trump is way up here, and I'm like, I love Donald Trump, but I'm actually more conservative than Donald Trump, but I'm not on their silly little chart. So first of all, go online, take it, see where you end up. You will realize how ridiculous this whole thing is. And you know that Donald Trump did not take this test, nor did J.D. Vance, nor did Ted Cruz. They extrapolated where they thought they would be, but not even based on the questions on their survey. It's one more attempt to ideologically capture our children. And that's why it's so important, and I know Tina will agree with me, for parents to be involved in education. If you send your kid to a private school, a charter school, homeschool, public school, especially public school, you have to be there. You have to be watching what's in the textbooks. You have to be reporting on it, and you have to help your kids understand the bias that is in all these things that they're being presented with, and then present them with the truth. Listen to Stacy on the right. Listen to Jenny Beth Martin. They can give you the true facts. They can help you understand some of these current events and where people really should be on this chart.
Here's one other thing that I caught as I was researching this. We've got a graphic from Newsweek that we pulled up. So Newsweek has reported about this. So the image from the book is legitimate. We were making sure that it wasn't any kind of hoax or rumor online. Newsweek reported on it, and look at what they said inside of their report on it. They wrote as a subtitle, "What does the book says about Trump and others?" Tina, it seems like the Newsweek reporters, and I am prone to typos myself, but I'm not writing for Newsweek. My job isn't just solely writing. It seems like they were actually educated through the AP system in America, and maybe they even went to a Leering Center at some point for education. Tina, as we're wrapping this up, what do you think about this chart? What are the moms around the country telling you? I bet you have even more examples of this outrageous kind of behavior.
I have more examples from my own children. My boys are great. They will take a picture with their phone all day long and just text me stuff out of their textbooks. And when I was on the school board, the 24-year-old, when he was in American government in high school, he texted me from the glossary of his American government book. And it said, and I quote, "Karl Marx, the father of capitalism." And I hit the roof. I went down to the district. I was like, what are we going to do about this? And they called the textbook company, which was one of the big three. And they said, oops, we'll send you some stickers that you can distribute to all your teachers in all 100 of your schools. And they can stick it over it to clarify. And I said, what about the schools across the country that have bought this book? Are you sending stickers to everyone? And what if the stickers don't make it? Like, this is just not factual information. It's either lazy or deliberately causing confusion. And so, yes, I have many examples, but obviously our mothers across the country have many examples. But the point is to train your children so when they open these textbooks, they see the bias, they see the lies, they know truth, and they can catch it and call it out.
So I have my own experience with the AP exams, and they definitely saved me money because my kids took AP exams, scored well on them, and were able to exempt out of a lot of college classes. So that that was helpful to us financially. But as they were going through these exams and the classes, they would come home and tell me things that they were learning. They would show me their textbook. The textbook said that the Tea Party movement was racist. I think it even said that Ronald Reagan was racist. So my kids and I would have discussions about this. Obviously, they knew that I was not racist and I was a co-founder of the Tea Party movement. So they thought these things were absurd. But my kids and I, of course, talk about politics a lot. And when they knew things were wrong, they would tell me about it. When they had questions, we would talk it through. And if I didn't know the answers, I'd find some expert to help talk them through and help them better understand history, because they weren't getting a good understanding of it from the AP classes. When my daughter was studying for, I think that it was AP World History. It was one of the classes. I don't remember which one, but she was studying. She was studying at the dining room table, which was connected to the kitchen, and we had an open house plan. So I could hear her, and she was going through some YouTube videos studying. And she came up to me and she said, "Mom, I'm going to listen to these videos, and I need you not to say anything. I know what they're saying is wrong, but I have to do well on this exam. So just please don't correct the video right now." But that's a real problem when she's sitting there having to memorize. It's memorization because she wasn't learning this information, but memorizing it so that she could do well in an exam, knowing full well what she was learning wasn't even right. That's a problem. And then I think there's an even bigger problem with the AP exams. The AP exams funnel what are supposed to be the best and the brightest in our school systems through these more advanced courses. And we think as parents and as conservatives that there is this diverse education system around the country. And the Department of Education, which President Trump and Secretary of Education Linda McMahon are cleaning up, are trying to dismantle some of the federal oversight for it and give state and local governments more control. That's very, very important. But we are still going to be in a situation where we have nationalized the last 2 years of high school for the best and the brightest, or the kids who are willing to go through the AP exam program. They're all testing from the exact same test, and they're learning from the same textbook, and they go and study from the same YouTube channels. So they're being completely indoctrinated. And I personally, since my daughter went through this, and it's been about 6 years since that conversation she had with me, "Mom, don't pay attention to what's on my screen." I think there needs to be a conservative alternative or a constitutional alternative to AP exams that all colleges will accept for that exemption credit. And I don't know how to make it happen, but it's something that has bothered me for a long time. And I'm glad more people are really highlighting what's wrong with these AP textbooks. We need more of it. The rest of the country and people who don't have high school students any longer need to understand this is a real problem. And we sit there and we wonder, gosh, what's wrong with all these 20-year-olds? Why don't they understand the importance of capitalism? Why don't they understand history? Well, they don't understand history because they weren't taught history, and they all went through the same program because they were all going through the AP program. So that's my soapbox. I'll stop. Let's turn to and close on something that is much more upbeat. America turns 250 this year, and Moms for Liberty is doing something big about it. Tina, we should have your website up on our screen. Tell us about Freedom 250. What are you doing? Why are you celebrating America's 250 in such an amazing manner?
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about these two remarkable events that we have put together. We're calling them Sea to Shining Sea to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. We partnered with Freedom 250 with Glenn Beck and The Torch, with American Journey Experience. And Real America's Voice just came on as the media partner. Patriot Mobile is partnering with us. We're so excited. I know Tea Party Patriots will be in attendance too. Jenny Beth, thank you so much for that. But we have rented out on May 2nd all of Ellis Island to celebrate the American dream. I mean, that is the place that millions of Americans came through legally, including my ancestors, and their stories are very personal to me. I encourage all Americans that don't know their story and their ancestors' story of why they came here and what they were searching for to really dig in and learn that, because it is why we are who we are today. We're going to have a black tie gala. We've got a lineup of speakers coming in to ignite our excitement about America. And we're ending the night on the island with an after party and a band and fireworks over the Statue of Liberty with Mary Milburn performing the national anthem. It's going to be a remarkable night. Then on the Sea to Shining Sea part, we're going to the other coast on June 6th, which is D-Day. We'll be on the USS Midway in San Diego, another black tie gala celebrating America's heroes, and fireworks off the bow of the ship at the end of the evening. And we just encourage all of you to join us. We want to have you with us physically. And if you can't be there for the Ellis Island event, we're actually doing a live stream watch party. Right now, I think we have almost 100 people signed up to host watch parties across the country so they can be part of the program that night.
That is so amazing. I'm very excited for these events, Tina. Stacy, as we speak, America is fighting for the freedom of the Iranian people and to stop Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon. What does that say about America's founding mission, and what should every American do to honor the United States in its 250th year?
Well, I think what we could do is we could read some of our founding documents and then pray for this country. And that should be something we as Americans do on a regular basis. But I really feel led, especially in our 250th year, that we would pray that God would send revival and that he would renew our American spirit, and that so many of the people that we've been describing on the show today, Jenny Beth, on your program, who are deceived, they've been indoctrinated, that they would come to know the truth. And the primary mechanism for knowing truth is knowing Jesus, so that they would know him and then know truth and be able to preserve what we have. I've grown up around the world as a military brat, and I'm the fourth generation to serve in my family. My husband is also the third generation to serve in his family. And so I've been all over the world, and I've seen so many different places. And when I say that God has gifted us with a beautiful world, he has. But there has never been a place I've been to, even Switzerland, which is the number one outside of America, in my opinion, for freedom and liberty. Even Switzerland cannot compare to America. America is like 1,000 countries and 1,000 vistas in one nation. You don't ever have to travel outside of the United States to be awed by the creation that God has given to us. But what's special also is the different variants of Americans you can encounter and the different cultures, and all of it under the banner of liberty that is gifted to you by God and enshrined in the Constitution. So I would say, to celebrate what you have, you love the one you're with. You love the heritage that you are carrying as your birthright, as a natural born American citizen, not some bastardization of the way that our country was founded, but the true natural born citizen who is actually a part of the founding of this country, the land that we live in, that runs in our DNA, that makes us a country. To celebrate that, to know what it's about, and to work to preserve it in whatever way you're supposed to work. So I served on a school board. Some of us are meant to serve on school boards. Some of us are meant to basically to vote. Some of us are meant to donate a lot, right? There are people out there who will never know their name, but they donate and they run these campaigns for us. They fund them. And so whatever your role is, find that this year and then celebrate this country. Love the country that you're from and celebrate it, because we're the driving force on this planet by the grace of God. And we are doing so much good. And now is a great time to appreciate that, to have gratitude for the gift of America. It's such a unique and special thing. And I don't even think many Americans can really quantify it or understand it fully. And I'd love to see more people do that. I think Tina's event would help a lot. One of her two events, if you go to one of those, you might catch my fervor for this country, or host a watch party. I really encourage that. But Jenny Beth, we got to love this country. It's hard to take care of something you don't love and respect. And I really want people to love this place.
I think that was beautiful. Thank you, Stacy. And Kris, Eagle Forum was founded in 1972. America is turning 250 years old. What is the one founding principle you want every American, especially young Americans, to carry into this anniversary? And is Eagle Forum doing anything to celebrate America 250?
We're doing a lot. Different state chapters are involved in all kinds of different activities to celebrate America 250. We're using our Eagle Forum report to put out different essays on what makes America great, on our founding, on our Declaration of Independence, that says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. That is an amazing sentence in an amazing document. And we're going to be celebrating those words all year in a variety of ways. And that's the one thing that we need to instill, the love for that sentence and everything it means, and how earth-shattering it was when it was written, that we are endowed by our Creator, the God who made us all and gave us rights, not from our government, but as human beings. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to create our own dreams, to become all that we can become. And that's our right as human beings. And we at Eagle Forum, we believe in the rights of each individual, the right to life, that first and overwhelming right, and to look at our fellow Americans and realize that they have those rights as well, and to really reunite us as one America. That's our hope and prayer for this year.
Tina, one more time. You still have tickets left for Freedom 250, and people can host watch parties. Give your website and just make that call to action one more time.
Thanks, Jenny Beth. It's momsforliberty.org/freedom250. You can purchase tickets for either event there. And if you go under the Ellis Island event, if you want to do the watch party, you can sign up for the watch party for free. We'll send you closer to the event a free downloadable toolkit to help enhance your party. Or you can even purchase a party box, and we'll ship some things to your house to help you host a more fun party.
Tonight is a turning point in history, and I don't use that phrase lightly. For years, I've watched political moments come and go. Most of them mattered less than we thought at the time. Tonight is different. At 8 o'clock Eastern Time, we will learn something about the world we live in. Today, the Iranian regime will make a decision that changes the course of the Middle East. Either they will choose the peace offer the president is still dangling, or risk losing their civilization. Either way, the world that exists at 9 p.m. tonight is not going to be the same as the one that existed at 7:59. Stacy Washington, Tina Descovich, and Kris Ullman, thank you so much for being here with me today and for breaking down the news. Go to Stacy at Stacy on the right, Tina at Tina Descovich, and Kris at Eagle Forum. They are all doing essential work, so make sure that you're following them on X. And remember, call the United States Senate. Tell them to pass the Save America Act. Go to passthesaveamericaact.com or call 202-224-3121. And before I let you go, if you haven't seen the episode that we did with Stacy Washington and Rod Martin on Gen Z, socialism, and the war on American pride in our schools, you can watch it right here. I'm Jenny Beth Martin. Thank you for being here with me today. Tonight, pray for our troops, for the people of Iran, our country, and for President Trump. I'll see you tomorrow on The Jenny Beth Show. If you enjoyed today's conversation, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It really helps us reach more people who care about liberty and the Constitution. You can find this and other episodes at jennybethshow.com, as well as Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, X, and your favorite podcast platform.
The Jenny Beth Show is hosted by Jenny Beth Martin. The Jenny Beth Show is a production of Tea Party Patriots Action. For more information, visit teapartypatriots.org.